Hello and welcome to our third lesson in this B4 topic. In previous lessons we've looked at the structure of the blood and how it's a tissue, what each part of the blood does, and we've also looked at blood vessels and how they're adapted in a circulatory system. So today's lesson we're going to be looking at the heart. So in your book write the title The Heart. By the end of the lesson you should be able to describe the structure and function of the heart, you should be able to explain the functions and adaptations of part of the heart, and you should be able to explain what happens during the cardiac cycle. So first thing we need to write down, or the first thing that we need to say, we can say that there are two types of closed circulatory systems. Now just to refresh our memory, because we did look at this a while ago, a closed circulatory system is where the blood flows in blood vessels. Okay, so where blood flows inside blood vessels. Okay. Now the two types of closed circulatory system include what are known as a single closed circulatory system and a double closed circulatory system. So the first one we need to talk about is a single closed circulatory system. Okay. Now, a single closed circulatory system is where the blood flows through the heart once for every complete cycle of the circulatory system. And we'll explain that in a bit more detail in a moment. So we can say a single closed circulatory system is where blood flows through the heart once for each complete cycle of the circulatory system. Okay, so we've said that a single closed circulatory system is where blood flows through the heart once for each complete cycle of the circulatory system. Now what I mean by that is, if you imagine we've got a heart, okay, I'm going to draw like a cartoon heart. Your heart is not really that shape. A single closed circulatory system, it is a closed circulatory system, so it has blood vessels, but it only goes through the heart once for each complete cycle. So if that's my heart, and I'll label it, so this is the heart, and these are my blood vessels, the blood flows out of the heart, around the body, and back to the heart once. That is a single closed circulatory system. Okay, so these are my blood vessels. Okay. Organisms such as fish have a single closed circulatory system. So we can put underneath here, we can say e.g. fish. So fish have a single closed circulatory system. On the other hand, we have what's known as a double closed circulatory system. So the second one we need to talk about is a double closed circulatory system. Okay. Now this is where blood flows through the heart twice for each complete cycle of the circulatory system. So we can say where blood flows through the heart twice for each complete cycle of the circulatory system. Cycle of the circulatory system. Now, exactly like we did before, we can draw ourselves a heart. Again, your heart doesn't look like this. This is a cartoon drawing of a heart. And rather than having a single loop where the blood vessels flow, your heart in a double circulatory system has two separate loops. Okay, so we've got one loop going to the body this way, and we've got one loop going to the body this way. Okay, so we've got loop 1 and loop 2. So loop 1 and loop 2. Okay, so in a single closed circulatory system, we've got this single set of blood vessels that flow blood through the heart once for each complete cycle. In a double closed circulatory system, the blood flows through the body in this figure of 8. It goes through two separate loops. Now, examples of organisms with a double closed circulatory system include mammals, and we are a mammal, so that includes us, e.g. mammals. Okay? So there are two types of closed circulatory system. There is a single closed circulatory system and a double closed circulatory system. Single closed circulatory systems are where blood flows through the heart in one single loop for each complete cycle. Examples of organisms with a single closed circulatory system are fish, whereas mammals have what's called a double closed circulatory system. So we have blood flowing through the heart twice for every complete loop. If we was to draw a line on this diagram, we could have the blood going out to the top, in fact we'll do it that way, going out to the bottom, around back to the heart, and then out at the bottom again, and it's making this figure of 8 shape with the flow of blood. With a single closed circulatory system, it goes from the heart, back to the heart, from the heart, back to the heart. Okay, so these are the two types of closed circulatory system. The one we're going to focus on now is the double closed circulatory system. We're going to look at the heart of mammals and your heart. Okay? So if we can refresh the screen, we don't want to save it, put it back to black. I want to add an image from the PowerPoint that looks like this. I'll add it in a moment because for now we're going to talk about the structure of the heart first. Okay, so first things first, I'm going to put it in red. The heart is a muscle that contracts to pump blood around the body, through blood vessels in mammals. Through blood vessels in mammals. Okay, so your heart is a muscle that contracts to pump blood around the body through blood vessels in mammals. This is really important. A lot of people can't say that the heart is a pump. I remember a couple of years ago in year 11, we had a mock and it was asking what the heart does, and nobody got that mark. You just need to say that the heart is an organ that contracts, it's made of muscle tissue to pump blood around the body. Now, because it is contracting, it needs lots of oxygen to carry out aerobic respiration. So we can say that the heart needs lots of oxygen and glucose to carry out aerobic respiration to contract. That's really important because next time we're going to look at problems with the heart and we need to keep that in mind. So we've said so far that the heart is a muscle that contracts to pump blood around the body through blood vessels in mammals. We've also said that the heart needs lots of oxygen and glucose to carry out aerobic respiration to contract. If it didn't contract, there wouldn't be the function of the heart. The heart wouldn't be able to pump blood around the body. So on the PowerPoint, you have got an image that looks like this. This image is very, very important. You need to be able to label a blank version of this heart. From memory, for a grade 4, you need to be able to label this as the vena cava, you need to be able to label this as the right atrium, the right ventricle, the left atria, the pulmonary vein, so on and so forth. You need to be able to label this diagram from memory. Now, this diagram is on the PowerPoint. I am going to put a blank version of it in Google Classroom so that you can keep testing yourself to make sure that you can do it. I will also put mark schemes in there so that you can keep testing yourself in your spare time. But you must be able to label this. If you can't label it, you're going to lose easy marks. For now, I'm going to make it a bit smaller. I'm going to put it here because you have got a larger version of this on the PowerPoint that I've attached to the Google Classrooms. So, the heart, okay? The heart consists of 2 pumps that beat together about 70 times per minute. So we can say, start by saying, the heart consists of 2 pumps. Okay, it consists of 2 pumps. We've got the right side of the heart, which is shown here, and we've got the left side of the heart, which is shown here. The right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs, whereas the left side of the heart pumps blood to the body. So we can say the right side of the heart, pumps deoxygenated blood to the lungs. Okay. On the other hand, the left side of the heart pumps oxygenated blood to the body. So the left side of the heart pumps oxygenated blood to the body, Okay, so the right side of the heart pumps blood to the lungs that's deoxygenated. What we mean by deoxygenated is that it doesn't currently have oxygen bound to its hemoglobin, while the left side of the heart pumps blood to the body so that it can drop oxygen off to the cells of the body that need it. Okay, now you will notice that on this diagram I'm saying that this is the right, whereas it's on your left, and this is the left, whereas it's on your right. It's important to keep this in mind. It's as if you're looking at a mirror. If you look at a mirror and you raise your right hand, in the mirror they will raise their left, and vice versa. It is always flipped. Okay, imagine you're looking at the heart, its left is your right. Okay, that confuses a lot of people. So, let's start having a think about the structure of the heart. Okay, so I don't know whether to refresh the screen. Yeah, I'm going to refresh the screen. You don't need to worry. I'll put this image back in because otherwise I'm going to have to refresh the screen halfway through and that'll be really, really annoying. Okay, so we'll add our image again. Might make it a bit bigger than we had it last time. Put it over here. And we can carry on talking about the structure of the heart, okay? So the heart consists of 4 chambers. So the heart consists of 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers, and 2 lower chambers. Okay, so the heart consists of 4 chambers, 2 upper chambers and 2 lower chambers. The first set of chambers that I want us to talk about are the atria. Atria, or atrium for single. Just let me have a swig of water. 2 atria. Now the atria are the upper chambers of the heart. So we can define these as the 2 upper chambers of the heart that receive blood from veins. So when veins bring blood back to the heart, the blood enters the heart through these atria. The left and the right atria fill at the same time. So I'm going to add underneath here in red, we can say that left and right atria fill at the same time. Okay, so we've got these 2 upper chambers known as atria that receive blood from veins and they fill at the same time. The 2 lower chambers are known as ventricles. Okay, now ventricles can be defined as the 2 lower chambers, that's an M, the two lower chambers of the heart that push blood into arteries. Okay, so they are the two lower chambers of the heart that push blood into arteries. So the atria push blood down into the ventricles, and then the ventricles push the blood up into the arteries. Now, a common question you will get asked is, why is the left ventricle thicker than the right ventricle? If you look at this, the left ventricle wall is way thicker than the right ventricle wall. Now, this is because the right ventricle wall only has to push blood to the lungs, whereas the left ventricle wall has to push blood to your entire body. So it needs to contract with more force. So we can add underneath here by saying that the left ventricle is thicker as it has to push blood to the whole body, comma, not just the lungs. So we've said that the heart consists of four chambers, two upper chambers known as atria, two lower chambers known as ventricles. The atria receive blood from the veins, and then the ventricles push blood up into the arteries. We've said that the atria fill at the same time, and we've said that the ventricles, the left ventricle wall is much thicker than the right because it has to pump blood to the whole body, whereas the right only has to pump blood to the lungs. Okay? Now, just as a bit of a hack for you, in fact, no, we'll talk about something else first. No, it's okay. As a bit of a hack for you, this word pulmonary seems to appear when we're talking about the lungs. So if the word pulmonary is in the name, it means that the lungs are involved. So pulmonary, I'll just write it up here, pulmonary literally means lungs. So we said last lesson that arteries carry blood away from the heart, therefore the pulmonary artery carries blood away from the heart to the lungs. Veins carry blood back to the heart, so the pulmonary vein carries blood from the from the lungs to the heart. Another important thing that we need to mention here is that the heart has valves between the atria and the ventricles. These prevent the backflow of blood. So we can say valves in the heart prevent the backflow of blood So once blood goes through these valves from the atria into the ventricles, it can't go back. The valves close, preventing the blood from going back. Exactly like we spoke about valves in veins in the previous lesson. So we've said that the heart consists of four chambers, two upper chambers known as atria that receive blood from veins. We've also said that it has two lower chambers known as ventricles. These ventricles pump blood to the entire body, and that the left ventricle has a much thicker wall than the right ventricle. This ensures that blood can be pumped to the entire body under more force. Okay? So, let's refresh our screen because I have run out of space. I am going to bring that diagram back up because we need to talk about the vessels of the heart, and then we can move on. This time I'm going to put it in the middle. I'm going to make it, leave it a bit bigger, okay? So, we need to talk about the main blood vessels of the heart, okay? The first one we're going to talk about is the pulmonary vein, this one here. And the pulmonary vein attaches to the left atrium. So the pulmonary vein transports oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atria. So transports oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atria. Help if I can spell left. To the left atria. Okay, so the pulmonary vein transports oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atria. The next one we need to talk about is the aorta, and the aorta is found at the top here. Okay, if you want to write these out in your book as a definition, that would be perfect. Save me and my hand. I'm just going to circle the ones that I'm describing. Okay, so the aorta transports oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the body. So the aorta transports oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the body. Okay, it is an artery, so the aorta is an artery. Although it doesn't have the word artery in its name, it is an artery. Okay, the next one that we need to define is the vena cava, and that's over here. The vena cava transports deoxygenated blood from the body to the right atria. So transports deoxygenated blood from the body to the right atria. Okay, so the vena cava transports deoxygenated blood from the body to the right atria. The final one we need to define, and I'm going to have to write it down here, so we need a colour, is the pulmonary artery. Now remember, pulmonary means lungs, so the pulmonary artery transports deoxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. So pulmonary artery transports deoxygenated blood from the heart, or from the right ventricle to the lungs. Okay, so these are the main blood vessels you need to know about. You need to know about the pulmonary vein, the aorta, the pulmonary artery, and the vena cava. The pulmonary vein transports oxygenated blood from the lungs to the left atria. The aorta transports oxygenated blood from the left ventricle to the body. It is an artery, although it doesn't have it in the name. The vena cava transports deoxygenated blood from the body to the right atria. Now that is a vein. The vena cava is a vein. Just because it doesn't have it in its name doesn't mean that it isn't one. And the pulmonary artery transports oxygenated blood from the right ventricle to the lungs. Now again, we did write this down on the previous slide, but remember, if it has got the word pulmonary in it, that literally means lungs. If it's got pulmonary in it, it attaches to the lungs, not lung, lungs. Okay? Right then, our final bit. We need to talk about something called the cardiac cycle. Okay? The cardiac cycle. And that is our next keyword. Cardiac cycle. Now, the cardiac cycle can be defined as the steps in a heartbeat. So, the steps in a heartbeat that allow blood to be pumped out of the heart, to be pumped out of the heart. So the cardiac cycle is the steps in a heartbeat that allow blood to be pumped out of the heart. Now, when you watch films, or if you think of the heart in cartoons or kung fu movies in particular, you always see that a heartbeat is the or the dud-dum, dud-dum, dud-dum. That is the cardiac cycle. Your heart has lots of beats all the time, and it always gives off this specific sound, the dud-dum, dud-dum, dud-dum. So the cardiac cycle creates the dud-dum, dud-dum sound. When you watch the old kung fu movies, they pull someone's heart out of their chest, hold it in the hand, and the heart's going like that, or da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. Obviously, I can do that because I'm a martial arts master. If I really wanted to, I could pull someone's heart out of their chest, hold it in my hand, and it would go da-dum, da-dum, da-dum. It would continue to beat. Now, the reason it has this dum sound is because what's known as the cardiac cycle. And we've got a diagram of the cardiac cycle here. It's on the PowerPoint, but I am going to add it to our chalkboard. I'm not going to make it much smaller because, in fact, I'll put it over here, because it tells you what's happening. Okay? So, there's 3 stages to the cardiac cycle. So, we can use this colour here. In fact, no, I'm going to use a blue because it'll break it up a bit. 3 stages of cardiac cycle. Now, there's 2 words that I want you to know for this. The word systole, S-Y-S-T-O-L-E, is a posh word for saying contract. Whereas the word diastole is a posh word for relax. Okay, so systole means to contract, diastole means to relax. So the first stage of the cardiac cycle is atrial systole. Atrial systole. Now, in atrial systole, the atria, the 2 upper chambers of the heart, contract. That's shown here. So number 1 is here. The atria are contracting and blood is pushed down into the ventricles. This gives the heart its D sound. Okay? So we can say atria contract, pushing blood into the ventricles. Through the valves. So blood is pushed from the atria through the valves into the ventricles because the atria are contracting. Our next stage, number 2, is this one here. Okay? Our second stage is known as ventricle systole, or you may see it as ventricular systole. Now this is when the ventricles contract, pushing blood up into the arteries. So ventricles contract, pushing blood up into the arteries. Sorry, my hand's starting to hurt now. Ventricles contract, pushing blood up into the arteries. Let's neaten this up a bit. Arteries, okay? The valves between the atria and the ventricles prevent the backflow of blood. So we can add there in red, valves stop blood returning to the arteries. Okay. So we've got atrial systole, where the atria contract, pushing blood down. And then we've got ventricular systole, which push blood up into the arteries. This is your dum sound. So from where we've said the cardiac cycle, this is the D sound. And this is the dum sound. But if you think about a heartbeat, it will always go D-dum, D-dum, D-dum. It won't go da-dum, 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 da-dum. There is a break between it. So our final stage in the cardiac cycle, number 3, is simply called diastole. Diastole. Remember, the word diastole means to relax. So during diastole, all of the muscles of the heart relax, allowing it to recover from contracting. Okay? So we can put entire heart relaxes, entire heart relaxes, allowing it to refill with blood and recover. So there's 3 stages to the cardiac cycle. We've got atrial systole, which gives the heart its D sound. We've got ventricular systole, which gives it its dum sound. And then we've got relaxation, which allows the heart to totally relax and recover. Remember, the valves prevent the backflow of blood, so the valves between the atria and the ventricles stop blood going back up into the atria. It forces it up into the arteries. So, That concludes today's lesson. You should now be able to tell me the structure and function of the heart. You should be able to tell me how the heart is adapted to do its job, and you should be able to explain what happens during the cardiac cycle. If you have any questions about anything we've discussed today, please comment below in the Google Classroom, or alternatively, you are more than welcome to send me an email and I will reply as soon as I can. I hope you are all well, and I will see you in the next video. All the best.